What's up, my Whovian homies? I am the Doctor Who Kid, and today we are continuing our breakdown of Flux. Of the Sontarans. So, in this episode, the Doctor, Gaz and Dan find themselves in the midst of the Crimean War, where it turns out that humanity is at war against the Sontarans. However, the Doctor soon finds herself having to deal with this problem all on her own, as Dan gets whisked away into modern-day Liverpool, which is also dealing with a Sontaran problem, and Yaz gets sent off into this mysterious temple, which is all broken down and apparently in need of repairing. Dan discovers that the Sontarans have only been on Earth for a couple of days, whereas from the Doctor's perspective over in the Crimea, it seems that they've been on Earth for a long time, long enough that most of the countries we know today don't exist anymore, replaced with a singular landmass called Sontar. So, with the help of famous nurse Mary Seacole, the Doctor tries to form some sort of negotiations with the Sontarans, but this human general is like, no, us jolly good British soldiers will deal with this threat for Queen and country. And then they basically all get killed except for the general, who gets very guilty about it. Meanwhile, Dan tries sneaking on board a Sontaran ship in order to get rid of the problem that way, with the help of his parents and the trusty Walk. Oh yeah, and Carvinista shows up top too. Thankfully, both teams are able to deal with the Sontaran threats. The Doctor returns to Liverpool to pick up Dan, and then the TARDIS gets hijacked and brings him to the temple where Yaz was, alongside that Vinder guy, where they run into Swarm and Azure, who have trapped Yaz and Vinder in this temple-y thing, which will threaten to have all of time and stream into their heads at the snap of a finger. Swarm snaps. Cliffhanger. I gotta say, I'm not used to my recaps going that fast. I guess it's time for analysis now? So, God, I probably should have written this down before I started filming. I really like this episode. Unsurprising, I always like these episodes. But, this one was really fun. I think this might honestly be the best Sontaran episode we've had in the modern era. The episode really manages to strike a good balance between actual military threats capable of becoming a horrible dictatorship and endangering humanity, and goofy idiot soldiers. They do a really good job of striking the balance between the two different potential portrayals, whilst thus managing to give us a great threat for the Doctor to face off against, which is still being quite funny at the same time. Especially the way the commander's just like, we went to the Crimea because of all the conflict going on. It would be such a great opportunity. Also, I wanted to ride a horse. And another thing that's really nice about this episode is how everyone gets split up. So the Doctor's stuck in the Crimean War all by herself, without any companions to rely upon for external help. Kind of like Spyfall Part 2 now that I think about it. Yeah, we even have that down to recruiting historical figures to be temporary companions, like with Ada Lovelace, only now it's Mary Seacole. Also, it can't have been a coincidence that the general guy we kept seeing in this episode was in charge of the Light Brigade, right? That was a whole thing where it was a military miscommunication led to unnecessary deaths, and now here we have another situation where an unnecessary ego leads to more military deaths. Parallels or something. That's actually giving me a good idea. Maybe a future video. Hold on. Watch this space. And time. Dan continues to prove himself a really great addition to the series. What's happening now that I think about it? The last series of a showrunner's era always ends up having the best companions. Weird. In this case, we get more greatly banter between him and Carvinista when Carvinista finally shows up. And we also get to meet his parents. who are just as hilariously Liverpudlian as Dan is about the whole situation. I don't know if we're going to see those two again for the rest of the series, but I do hope so because they were great. Dan going around with his trusty walk, bashing Sontarans in their probing vents, making all sorts of silly puns while doing so. It's great. Yaz's subplot doesn't really seem connected to everything else going on, but I sense it is probably part of the larger narrative. I suspect given the whole 6-part story thing going on, we'll be seeing that a lot. Like scenes that aren't necessarily relevant to the immediate story, but are part of the larger whole. In this case, you wind up in a mysterious temple, it's all broken down, we don't know what's going on. There's these like triangle things, and they keep asking people who enter whether they can repair the temple. And was it just me, or did they sound a bit like K9? Like, I got K9 vibes from their voices. And Yaz does her best to take charge, which even though she has no idea what's going on as well. And using the observations Vinder's already made, she tries to work out what's going on, while also asking the Triangle some more information about just where they are. Apparently they're in the Temple of Atropos, which is some sort of planet maintained by this species called the Mori, who apparently watch over and maintain the flow of time itself because they view time as an aberration against the universe, and without their maintenance, time would just run wild. Okay, that's a daring concept. But yeah, then Swarm and Azure show up in the temple, along with this third guy who's apparently called Passenger. No idea who he is. Where'd he come from? Who knows? Swarm and Azure proved to be fun villains to watch, with their great stage presence, their disintegrating powers, and, their almost River Song-esque familiarity with the Doctor. Like I said, this episode is just really, really great. One of Jodie's strongest performances as the Doctor so far. Great companion moments showcasing what they're like when left to their own devices. Especially Yaz, who's really showing her take charge of this in this series. I like it. I do have a couple of minor nitpicks though. Like, for one thing, Diggy Guy shows up again. He's in the temple and then he pops up in one scene and just isn't there for the remainder of the episode. I honestly think he was only put there to remind the viewers that he exists. And one line of dialogue that I did think was a bit odd was that when Dan was about to sneak into the Sontaran spaceship on his own, he says to his parents, "Don't worry, I've had a bit of alien run-ins with the last few days." And I was just thinking, few days? Isn't this just one serialized narrative? Technically you've only had one night with aliens as far as I know. Just a little thing that felt odd. So, overall I will give it 10 out of 10 best Doctor Who episode ever. One more chapter of Flux down the bag. And join me next time where I will review the third chapter, Once Upon Time, and I will also provide my theories as to where the series could be going from thereafter.